Now, that was just part of Mr. Frederico Links' article that was released on the Namibian, dated the 1st of July 2021. Now, in a few minutes, we will be having a conversation or an interview with Mr. Frederico Links. And please do make sure that you are available to hear. Or if you want to call in, please do call in and just ask any question. Any question at all that you have, please do call in, and you will be talking to Mr. Frederico himself. He's going to be answering your questions. Mr. Frederico Links, tell us who is Mr. Frederico and why are we talking to Mr. Frederico today?
All right, I'm the editor of Namibia Fact Check, which is a project of the Institute for Public Policy Research. And Namibia Fact Check was a project we set up in mid-2019, specifically with the aim of, at the time, sort of fact-checking elections-related falsehoods and misinformation. That was in the lead-up to the 2019 presidential and national assembly elections in November that year. So, because we were seeing so much, so many falsehoods and misinformation, disinformation in the election, in the election campaigning, that we felt we needed to try and provide people with credible, verified information. So that's why we created this project. That was the initial purpose. But since then, since the beginning of 2020, with the emergence of COVID-19, most of our work has sort of become about debunking COVID-19 related falsehoods. So that's most of what we're looking at the moment. So that in short is maybe a factor.
So now today we are talking about fears about blood clots spun into lies. Now understand that the blood clots are associated with the AstraZeneca vaccine. Do you think the hesitancy of getting this particular vaccine has a strain on the government in any way, with Namibians opting to rather use Sinopharm?
I think a lot of people, have sort of, because of this issue, which has been, has been spun into all sorts of falsehoods, into all sorts of lies, has been, the AstraZeneca vaccine has been unfairly, sort of maligned because of it. And people rather say, because I'm still hearing people talk about this vaccine and talk about the blood clotting and so on. When the issue really has by now been settled that it isn't a very common thing. It is a very rare condition, but it has impacted, people's perceptions of the vaccine. Not just here, in other countries as well, in other parts of the world as well. And it's because of, the falsehoods that have been sort of built around, this specific condition that has emerged, with the AstraZeneca vaccine.
Now, which continent makes use of this vaccine the most, and why would the reason be?
Well, which continent?
Yeah, the continent that makes use of this vaccine the most.
All right. So, this vaccine is being used, except for North America, this vaccine is being used across Europe, Asia, Africa, South America, Australia.
So it's almost everywhere.
Yeah, it's the most used vaccine in the world at the moment, COVID-19 vaccine. So, outside of North America, the US specifically, this vaccine is being used everywhere else. It's being used so much that, to date, the numbers of people who have developed this blood clotting condition, for all the hundreds of millions of people who've been vaccinated with this vaccine, a handful of people have developed this, this blood clotting condition. So it isn't a common thing. It's a very, 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 very rare condition. But I mean, it has been made out as if it's, this thing is going to affect you if you use this vaccine. I mean, you're more likely probably to die of COVID-19 than you are of developing this condition, this blood clotting condition, because it's so rare. So I mean, this is something that has unnecessarily complicated, the vaccine drive, not just here, as I said, but in other parts of the world as well.
So now, do you perhaps know what percentage of Namibians have had this vaccine, and what are the results so far?
Well, I mean, I think over 70,000 Namibians have now gotten this vaccine. Yeah, I think so. By the last figures, I think, I'm speaking under correction. I have to apologize. I don't have the figures in front of me at the moment.
Okay.
So, and there have been no blood clotting cases publicly reported by the Ministry of Health.
So the blood clotting situation did not happen in Namibia as we speak.
No.
Okay.
I mean, tens of thousands of people have had this vaccine, and we haven't had a single incidence of this blood clotting condition reported here. So I mean, you can see how it really doesn't seem to be that big of a deal.
Yeah.
And across the world, as I said, hundreds of millions of people have now been vaccinated with this vaccine. I think in 115 countries it's approved for use, if I remember correctly. So I mean, that's a lot of countries where a lot of people are being vaccinated on a daily basis.
Yeah.
It doesn't. We really aren't seeing, sort of a flood of reports of blood clotting cases coming out. It's not happening. So I mean, this is something where, a very rare condition has been blown up to be far worse than it actually is out there. And as I said, I think I said it wrong. I said you're far more likely to die of COVID-19 than of getting this condition. I'll change that. You're far more likely to develop a serious COVID-19 disease than you are of actually developing this blood clotting condition.
Okay, so now, as I was listening to your podcast that you were talking to Hannah, you mentioned a few countries that have stopped using the vaccine. Now, my question is, now with something that has, that kind of report around it, why are we still using it? Why can't we opt for something else?
Well, I mean, we don't have a choice here.
Yeah.
I mean, we only have two vaccines. So if the one is not available, then you have to take the other one. In places where they have a choice, where they have, a number of vaccines available and people can make a choice, and that sort of people can choose not to take that vaccine because, I might be the person who develops that condition.
Yeah.
You never know. So people choose not to take that vaccine, for instance. Because they have a choice, they can choose another one. But in places where, where maybe that's the only vaccine, what do? You have to, you're probably going to take your chances. Or you're not going to take the vaccine, because you feel, what if you're that one person out of the many thousands who develops the condition? So, it's much easier in places where they actually have choice. I mean, for instance, Denmark has totally stopped administering the AstraZeneca vaccine because of this condition. But I think they had something like 3 or something. I'm speaking under correction again. I don't have the figures in front of me, but they had a handful of cases out of many thousands of people vaccinated. And that's, so they decided not to do it. Finland restricted the use of it to certain age groups. Britain has also restricted the use of it to certain age groups. Other parts of Europe have done the same. But I mean, they still continue to use it, but with the exception of Denmark, of course, where they have said, we have other choice of other vaccines, but, so we're not going to use the AstraZeneca vaccine. And of course, this has contributed to, the negative perceptions of people thinking this vaccine is dangerous.
Yeah.
This vaccine is going to make you sick and so on. It's poisonous and so on. But I mean, once again, it needs to be pointed out that this vaccine is being administered around the world on a daily basis, and there are not, sort of a flood of reports of this condition emerging in across the world. It's simply not happening. So the way this has played out has certainly not helped the reputation of this vaccine, to be honest.
I understand the Astra vaccine has been at the center of this, misinformation ever since the beginning of the whole, when they started rolling out the vaccines.
Exactly. I mean, it's both health authorities and the company itself, AstraZeneca, haven't exactly been proactive in dealing with, the falsehoods around the vaccine. They totally mishandled when this thing first emerged, this blood clotting condition. The company itself didn't handle it very well in terms of its public relations. This has all sort of not been in the favor of this, this vaccine. It's still a good vaccine, and it seems to be performing quite well against the Delta variant, according to reports that are now coming out. This variant that is now scaring the whole world.
Yeah.
It seems to be doing very well against the Delta variant. So, I don't know what to say. I mean, this is where you really need your health communication to be good, to counter the questions people might have and the falsehoods that might be circulated.
So we have come to the end of our interview, but before we let you go, Mr. Frederico, do you have any last word that you would want to share with our listeners?
I'd encourage them to go and take a look at the information around this vaccine, and to go to the World Health Organization web pages on the COVID-19 vaccines. Go and take a look at what they are saying there. They link to other resources that you can go and take a look at if you want more information. The whole situation is explained there about this blood clotting vaccine and so on, the blood clotting condition. So you really don't need to wonder about this. The information is there. It is available. It is explained. The research around the blood clotting condition is there. So I mean, you can read up about this stuff. It's not a mystery. It's not a secret. So please do go out there and do some reading if you have questions. The information is available.
Mr. Frederico, thank you for your time. And it's always good to talk to you.
It's always a pleasure.
Well, that was Mr. Frederico Links, simply just telling us, the whole misinformation when it comes to the AstraZeneca vaccine. Guys, really, we really do need to have our facts in check. And he is the editor of the Namibia Fact Check, which is a project for the Institute for Public Policy Research. Now you can get a Namibia Fact Check at, you can view it at the World Wide Web .namibiafactcheck.org.na.